Hi, everyone, and welcome. I'm Nicole Hummel, and I'm a ceramic artist based here in Eugene. And today I'm going to be teaching you how to make homemade sculpting dough from scratch. If you've ever made a cake before or done any baking, you'll see that this is very similar to that process. And in fact, this process is very similar to the way that clay is made using the raw materials. So before we begin with this process of making the clay, we are going to take a moment to become aware of our bodies so that we can be more fully engaged in this process of making the clay. So let's begin with our embodiment exercise. Close your eyes and take a moment to wiggle your fingers and move your arms around. And we'll take a deep breath in and exhale with a Let's do that 2 more times. One more time. Now we're going to move our arms at the same time as we breathe. So reach your arms out to the sides. And as you breathe in, reach your arms up overhead. And as you exhale, reach them down. We'll do that one more time. Take a moment to close your eyes. Notice how your shoulders, arms, and breath feel. Taking another deep breath in and out. And then open your eyes. So these kinds of embodiment exercises can be really helpful for centering your mind and your body so that you can be more present in whatever you're doing. If at any point during the class today you feel overwhelmed, anxious, things aren't going how you want, feel free to pause, take a deep breath, return to this exercise of reaching your arms up and down and breathing with the breath and the movement of your body moving together. So thank you for joining me in that. And our intention is to be more aware of what's going on with our body and our breath so that we can be more connected to what we're making. So moving on, we are going to organize our materials. I hope that you've been able to gather the materials for making your clay today. We're going to sort our materials on our work surface, starting with our bowl. So we have a bowl. We have measuring cups, ideally a 1 cup measure and a 1/4 cup measure. We have measuring spoons. We need a tablespoon and a teaspoon if you don't have a full set. We need flour, and today I accidentally grabbed the whole wheat flour. Ideally, all-purpose flour will give you a plate of sculpting dough that'll be a lot easier to work with, but you'll be seeing me model with the whole wheat flour today. We're also going to use salt, simple table salt, cream of tartar, oil, and food coloring. I have 4 colors today: green, red, yellow, and blue. And from those 4 colors, we'll be able to make a bunch of different colors. And then the last thing you'll need is hot water. Make sure that you have the help of an adult mentor to help you heat up your water. I have mine in a thermos today. You can boil it using an electric tea kettle or in the microwave. Hot water, if you wait for a long time from the spout, from the spigot, if it really gets hot, that could work too. But have the help of an adult mentor for that step of the process. So now that we have organized our materials, we're going to move them out and set up our workspace. So I'm going to move all my ingredients off to the side. And I'm going to set my bowl right in the middle. Your workspace can be a blank piece of paper or a clean and flat surface. A countertop works great. A cutting board works great as well. And your bowl will be right at the center of your workspace. Our next step will be heating up the water. So if you haven't already done that and don't already have that in your thermos, have your adult mentor help you heat up the hot water and also add it at the end of this step. So we are going to measure out all of our ingredients and put them in the bowl. We're going to start with 1.25 cups of flour. So I'm going to take my flour and I'm going to take my 1 cup measure. So we need 1.25 cups. I'm going to use 1 cup. And then finding your 1/4 cup measure, add 1/4 cup. You can put your flour away. Then I'm going to add 1/4 cup of salt. So pulling out my 1/4 cup measure again, add the salt. Then I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of cream of tartar. So using my measuring spoons, finding the 1 teaspoon measure, taking my cream of tartar. A nice way to measure 1 teaspoon out is to actually take the cap off of it, scoop out 1 teaspoon, and then use the cap to level it off back into the container. I'm going to add that 1 teaspoon. And then I'm going to mix up these dry ingredients. So you can use your hands for this. Making sure it's nice and even before we add the wet ingredients to the bowl. You can also use a spoon for this. I kind of like the way that it feels for my fingers. Reminds me of playing with sand. Okay, and I'm brushing off my hands a little bit. I'm going to add the wet ingredients. So I need to add the hot water first. If you can have the help of your adult mentor to help you with this part, I'm going to add 1/2 cup. So finding my 1/2 cup measure, measuring out 1 cup of water, 1/2 cup of water. And then 1/2 tablespoon of vegetable oil. In this case, I have olive oil today. So filling up your 1/2 tablespoon measure halfway and then adding it to the bowl. So careful here. At this point, we're going to mix this up, but we're not going to use our hands yet. First, we're going to use either a spoon or a spatula. A wooden spoon works great, a plastic spoon, a metal spoon. I have a spatula here, and I'm going to just mix it. This is still really hot because that hot water that I put in there. So careful not to touch it yet with your hands. And you're going to see over the course of this time that we're mixing, you're going to see the consistency of this change a lot. It moves from kind of powdery, dry dough. It starts to all come together. Soon we'll be able to do this with our hands. Once it's a little bit more cooled off, you can kind of feel with your hands. Mine is still a little bit hot. Okay, and if yours is already kind of mixed and very sticky, you can feel free to add a tiny bit of flour. Mine is feeling a little bit sticky today, so I'm going to add just a tiny bit of flour. A little bit goes a long way. Just going to sprinkle a little bit on top here. I'm going to keep mixing. And now you can feel your clay. Maybe it's a little bit cooler now. Mine is just getting warm, nice warm consistency. If yours feels very crumbly and dry still, and you've been doing a lot of mixing, you can feel free to add a tiny bit of hot water, a tiny bit of oil. I'm going to add just a little bit more flour to mine because it's still feeling a little bit sticky. So we mix and adjust our clay so that it's just the right consistency for us. What we're going for is something that can be kind of shaped and squished around in your hands without sticking to the hands too much. So you can see here, I now have a nice ball of clay. Keep kind of patting it and moving it around with your hands. The more you work it, the more it will start to even out in consistency and become a little bit easier to work with. If you're still finding that it's very sticky, add a tiny bit more flour, just a sprinkle. And we're going to take it out of the bowl. We're going to wedge it a little bit on the board. Wedging is the process of mixing clay so that it gets a nice even consistency. You can get any bubbles out of the clay. You can even out if there are dry spots or wet spots. Wedging, which is very similar process to kneading dough, kneading bread dough. Okay. Mine is still feeling just a tiny bit sticky. So I'm going to add just a little bit more flour. You can see how little I'm adding. It's very just a sprinkle here. A little bit goes a long way to really change the consistency because that flour really absorbs the water that's already in the clay. Okay, there we go. Now I think mine is feeling really good. Okay, so our next step is going to be adding the color. We are going to make different colors of dough so that we can use this to do our projects moving forward. So I'm going to show you how to divide the clay and add color using our food coloring. You can take your food coloring out. And I'm going to divide this into 7 balls of clay. And we're going to do 6 colors, and then 1 ball of clay will be just this plain color. So divide as best you can into 7 chunks. I'm going to use my spatula here to cut it. So let's see, we'll start right here. 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3, 4. It's kind of fun to cut clay. So I've got 7 balls of clay here, and I'm going to mix my colors in. So we'll start with the red. I'm going to take my little ball of clay and I'm going to add red. I like to make a little bowl to kind of catch the dye. So you can use your thumbs to pinch the center here. Then I'm going to add the red. I'm going to add 4 drops of red. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let it kind of mix around for a moment. If you do not want any food coloring on your hands, you can use some latex gloves at this point to cover up your hands so that they don't get stained, but the food coloring will all wash out. So that once I add the color, I start to mix the clay, and you can do this by pinching, by squishing, mixing the dough really well. You can kind of roll out a coil like this, squish it back together, use your hands to move it back and forth between your hands. You can see it's starting to turn that red color, pinkish color. If you want a darker red, you can add more food coloring, remembering that a little bit goes a long way and it can make a big mess. So I'm going to leave my red as more of a light red or pink color. So once I've got that made, I'm going to put it in my bowl. Then I'm going to move to orange. Orange is a combination of yellow and red. So we're going to do 2 drops of red. 1, 2. And 2 drops of yellow. 1, 2. Then I'm going to let that soak in a little bit, kind of swirling it around, giving that dye a chance to kind of set into the clay before mixing it. And then I'm going to start pinching it back and forth. You can kind of roll it. I like this way of rolling it into a coil and then squishing it back together. Rolling into coil, folding it over, and then rolling it into another coil. There are lots of different ways of mixing a ball of clay. And you'll see, I'll hold this up to the camera. You can see there's still a couple little veins of a darker color and the rest is lighter, but the more you continue to mix it, the more even that color will be throughout the ball of clay. So now I'm going to roll that into a ball. You can see a nice orange color and put it in the bowl. Then I'm going to make the yellow, pinching my little bowl, adding 4 drops of yellow. 1, 2, 3, 4. I always think it's interesting how the color of the dye is really different than the color that you end up getting. This looks so orange, but you'll see that once we mix it into the clay, it's going to be a really nice yellow color. My love, feel free to pause for a moment and kind of see the way that the color starts to mix in. It looks almost like marbled through there. And if you like that marbly effect, feel free to leave it that way. It doesn't need to be a total even color. Everybody's clay is going to look a little bit different, and that's okay. In fact, it's better than okay. It's great. I love that about when we each create with our own hands. Everything turns out different for different people. We're not trying to create the same exact thing, just exploring working with our hands. So here's the yellow. Put that in my bowl. Now we'll make green. Making my little bowl, adding 4 drops of green. 1, 2, 3, 4. Letting that green dye kind of soak in. Looks so cool. I don't know if you can really tell on the camera here, but if you kind of pull it, it creates these cool little cracks in the clay. If you feel like I'm moving too fast at any point and you're feeling excited about a certain step in the process, feel free to move at a different pace. You don't need to move as fast as I am. Maybe you're faster. Maybe you've already got all 6 balls of clay, with their colors in them. I love that marbly color that you can see with the clay there. But since we're all doing this at home, everybody in their own space, there's a lot of freedom for you to explore and enjoy and indulge in different parts of the process. So if you're really enjoying this color part of making the clay, different colors, feel free to experiment more, make more colors, make a whole nother batch of clay and see what other colors you can create. So there's the green. Then I'll do the blue. 1, 2, 3, 4. Playing around with it now. Seeing what that cracking does. Folding it in. So continuing to mix the clay, rolling it into a ball when it's nice and mixed. There's the blue, and we'll make purple next. Purple is a combination of purple and red, of blue and red. And actually, I kind of liked, if you check out the side of if you're using a food coloring box, they sometimes have a recipe on the side. So this pretty purple seems to be twice the amount of red as blue. So we're going to do 2 drops of blue, and we'll do 4 drops of red. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now this is a little bit more dye than we've been using in the other one, so it might spill out. Take some time at this point to really mix it around. Let it soak in before you pinch it, and you can even kind of start to squish it a little bit, and then we'll mix it together. Something fun to explore if you're enjoying this color part of the process is to see what colors you can make with ingredients in your kitchen that aren't food coloring. There are lots of different natural dyes that you can use. Turmeric is a spice that you can add that will give you a really nice kind of mustard yellow color. You can also use blueberries or beet juice to get different colors. Beet juice, when you've cooked the beets, using the water that you've cooked the beets in, you can get a really nice red. So that's something for further investigation. If you're feeling excited about this process, you can do some research on different natural dyes that you can make at home for dyeing your clay. Okay, so here we go. There's nice purple. Put it in the bowl. And lastly, we have our plain color that we are not going to put any color to. It's just going to be a white clay that we can use for our project moving forward. So if this is feeling frustrating, if it's not turning out the way you want, remember, come back to your breath, take a deep breath, take your time. You can do this. If you make mistakes, that's okay. Try again. You can see that I kind of made a mistake earlier on with how much water and flour to add, and I was kind of adjusting. So take your time, to adjust and make it right for you, and to fix your mistakes. So I want to show how to store your sculpting dough, store your modeling dough. This dough that you made will keep for a couple weeks. I do recommend that you wash your hands with soap and water before using it each time. That way no organic materials get into the clay, creating a mold or any sort of bacterial growth. So wash your hands before using it, and this will help the clay last longer. It will last fine for a couple of weeks. The other factor is you really want to cover it well with plastic. You can either put it in a Tupperware or a glass or plastic Tupperware, or you can just put it in a plastic bag. And I think a plastic bag really works well for really keeping the clay all close together and allowing very little air into the clay, because if you don't cover it, it will get really dry and crumbly and be really difficult to work with. So I'm going to show how I just throw all of my colors into this plastic bag. This is just a produce bag from the grocery store. Putting all my colors into this bag. And then winding it up nice and close to that clay. And then you can store it in a bowl or in a Tupperware like that. So that's it. Let's take a moment to have a closing reflection together. Sit back and close your eyes. And for a moment, remember the process of doing this. Remember the process of organizing our workspace, the embodiment exercise that we did at the beginning, mixing all of the dry ingredients, adding the hot water and the oil and wedging the clay, and then adding the colors. And think for a moment about which part of that was your favorite and why. And think for a moment as well how it feels to make your own materials from scratch, from the raw ingredients. And this is a material now that moving forward we can use to make an infinite number of things. And these were all ingredients that probably you just had in your own kitchen. So let's take a deep breath together. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Feel free to explore with this modeling dough, explore all the different things that you can make with it. You can explore and create different shapes, animals, whatever you want, whatever you feel excited about. In upcoming lessons, we're going to be using this clay to build the digestive system. So we're going to build a model of the digestive system using the clay that we made today. So I'm looking forward to teaching all of you how to do that and seeing how it unfolds. It's really exciting how endless the possibilities are with this material, and your hands from this point forward are the only tool that you need. So we have 3 more lessons to explore. Please tune back in. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye.